1987, I survived a D&E abortion, but my twin did not. I wish people knew that abortion hurt women like me, like my birth mother. Growing up, I always knew that I was adopted. I was adopted into a family that told me I was loved, wanted, chosen, created with a purpose. So when the time came to meet my birth mother, there was nothing to be afraid of. I met my birth mother, Tanya, in March of 2009. And after giving her a gift and thanking her for my life, my birth mother broke down into tears and shared the truth about my survival with me. My 13-year-old birth mother had been told that abortion would fix her problem and help her life go back to normal. But my birth mother's D&E dismemberment abortion at 20 weeks in Stillwater, Oklahoma, that was supposed to take my life, miraculously didn't. And my birth mother's life never went back to normal. The doctors had missed me after they aborted my twin, not knowing that my birth mother was pregnant with 2 babies. I was born 10 weeks early in Oklahoma City, weighing 3 pounds, 2 ounces, with a dislocated hip and clubbed feet. My chronic hip and foot problems are daily reminders that I am a twinless twin and someone who was meant to be aborted, but miraculously survived. I believe I survived so that I could show you what choice looks like, what babies who are aborted grow up to be. I survived an abortion, but my twin didn't. When you look at my face, I want you to think about my twin who was aborted. Abortion survivors aren't imaginary. We have names. We have stories. Our lives matter just as much as yours. I have forgiven my birth mother, and I share my story today because she deserved better than abortion too.
You know, I think as we all sit here completely astonished at the introduction of our next guest today, what comes to mind right away is that nobody, whether you're contemplating doing this or whether you've done it, because I've been there as a young girl, nobody explains and nobody really understands the power, the devastating, damaging power of the abortion legacy. It's a pain and a shame that you live with your whole life. And I think, you know, joining us today is Claire Culwell and her adoptive mom, Barbara. And there's so many questions and so many places I want to start, but I think, Claire, the first thing that I really want to ask you is, in how many ways did this impact your life? You know, we hear about the physical impact of your mom's decision, but let's talk about the emotional ways that this impacted your life, because I can only imagine.
Thank you so much for having me. I went into meeting my birth mother thinking I will never be someone that has been affected by abortion. I mean, I thought about the person that had been affected by abortion, and I thought that is not someone in my home. It's certainly never going to be me, not someone in my church, in my community, in my neighborhood. And I was so wrong. Yeah. I realized when I met my birth mother that the woman that has been affected by abortion is human and is just like me. And so finding that out radically changed my life.
Right.
Not only did I not ever think I would find something like that out, but I didn't realize the domino effect that one choice, one life has. And I think about my children at home and how they wouldn't have a mother if that abortion had successfully done its job and taken my life, and just the radical impact that has on so many people, because my children will one day grow up and become mothers and fathers someday too, I hope. And so and also just thinking about my twin, what am I missing? And the emotional effect of that, because doctors say that we as survivors, and I'm not the only one, but we as survivors, our bodies remember. And psychologically we remember, and the fight or flight to fight for our lives in the womb that we remember, and my twin, that I subconsciously remember that relationship, because I did spend 5 months in the womb with my twin, and so the impact is so huge.
I mean, you talk about 5 months, and we're living in a country that is going right up until delivery now, which it's shocking when you think about it. Was your birth mom sorry? How does she feel today with a different understanding of what this is?
My birth mother went into her abortion appointment being told that this is the best choice for you. She was 13 years old. And her mother was the one that told her, we are never going to talk about this again. This is going to be our secret. This is going to fix your problem. And yet for 21 years until she met me, and even to this day, this is her deepest, darkest, most painful thing that happened in her life. And the day that I met her and she shared this with me, I saw this pain in her eyes, and it spoke louder than anything in that room, than my survival, than my twin's life. The pain in her eyes was so deep. And because of how I was raised, I was able to forgive my birth mother instantly, because I knew God had already forgiven her. He had forgiven me for so many things. And the right response was to forgive my birth mother. And so over the past few years, my birth mother has been able to not only accept my forgiveness for her, but more importantly, accept and believe God's forgiveness for her. And it has radically changed her life and just created a new redemptive story for the story that God wrote for us.
Oh, I got to tell you, it is so hard. Yeah. Because it is so hard to forgive yourself. And I sit here having been a young woman and just thought, as we all get told by the world that we live in today, well, you're too young, or wow, this isn't a big deal. You don't, so you disconnect yourself from the reality of what's really happening until it hits you. And when it hits you, what you do go through, if you're out there and you're watching and you're thinking about having an abortion, you got to understand, when you've had one, to sit here and speak to you is that much more, it's that much more riveting for me, because I have some, I'm quite convinced of some, like the sex of that child now, and different things where God begins to give you revelation when you press into the Lord in this issue, and you begin to realize, and it's a beautiful, loving repentance that God has for us, which I get your mom is probably experiencing, but it's very difficult to get to that experience. So you're so right about forgiveness, forgiveness of self. Forgiveness.
I wanted to ask you a question, because you had been praying for a child, and then you find this precious little lamb, tiny, so many issues, so many struggles. What was going on in your heart and in your mind when you thought about her?
Before I met her?
No, when you met her for the first time.
When we met her. I was overwhelmed. We had prayed for years, and time after time, I'd cried out to God, like, Lord, I want a baby. What's the deal? Are you good? Do you see me? Do you care? And I knew that it was true. I knew that God was good and that He had a bigger and better plan for my life. But some days it was really, really hard. And so when the time came and we met her in the hospital, she had a little cast on her feet in a harness, we were just both thrilled. We couldn't believe that this was the answer to our prayers. And it was just such a gift. It was the happiest day of my life. Of just
Wow.
So you weren't like telling people don't risk a special needs adoption, is what it, you
we
didn't
had
know
a
at
few
the time.
months to decide, to say, Lord, is this the baby you want for us? Because in adoption, you do have a choice. It's different than when you deliver a baby. But we were waiting and trusting the Lord, and He made it clear, this is the baby for you. And by that time, we were so attached to her. At one point, we thought we wouldn't be able to adopt her, and we grieved the loss of knowing her. Like, we've been praying for her. Who else would love her like we have for these months?
So beautiful how
Such a
God is,
beautiful
because
story.
one woman's unwanted situation becomes another woman's
Answer to prayer.
incredibly wanted answer
Yes.
to prayer, and that's the beauty of the adoption choice. Has it been sort of an odd thing when she became in contact with her birth mother? What did you go through?
I think when we walked into adoption, we knew that people that were adopted would usually probably want to know who they look like and where their heritage is. So we went into it open-handed. So we were thrilled to meet her. And of course, it was a big surprise of what we learned when she told me, yeah, I had an abortion when I was pregnant with her. Do you think I should tell her? And it was, I think in the process as we waited and trusted God for this unknown baby for years, we knew that God had a plan for that baby in the time that we would adopt this baby. But then when I learned that, I'm like, wow, God has an amazing plan for her life of what she's already survived. And it was just exciting. And I felt compassion for her birth mother, yet it was, to me, it was helpful just to see this person that gave life to my daughter. And so we were thrilled to get to know her.
What's the calling and the plan for your life? What has God told you?
I just want to be able to give a voice to women like my birth mother, because my birth mother told me when I met her that she was looking for a sign. She was looking for a way out. She was looking for someone to stand up for her and tell her that she was worth it, that she could do it, that there was something better for her than what was inside of that abortion clinic. Someone that could say there are people that can help you, that want to help you, that want to walk alongside you. And so I want to be able to use my story and use my survival to be able to give a voice to women like her, and then also to women, unborn women who maybe don't have the privilege of surviving like I have, and to women like my mom here, who just longed and prayed for a baby, and that their voices can be heard, that there are people that want to come alongside them and pray with them and grieve with them and rejoice with them and just walk through whatever journey God throws their way. And so
one of the things I think is so powerful that you just said, and it blew me away, is that you want to be a voice for those who are like your mother. I mean, that is the redemption of God. And I wanted to ask, what would you say to somebody who's watching right now and thinks, I did the worst thing in life, and this could be my girl, and who feels now in tremendous pain? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I always hope that the strongest message that my story reveals is a message of forgiveness and grace and hope. Because when we look at Christ and who he says about us, he doesn't say, oh, you're someone who's had an abortion. He says, you're forgiven, you're redeemed, there is grace and there's hope for you. And I love you regardless of what you've done. And so I forgave my birth mother in that moment because what I know that Christ says about her are those things, not anything that she's done. And so I would encourage any person that has experienced an abortion to seek out people that want to walk alongside your healing journey with you, because there are so many organizations out there that do that. And just pray over the promises that God has on your life, that you are forgiven and that you are loved and that you are redeemed regardless of what you've done.
There's one message for the church, for God's daughters, that comes out of today for me. It's that it's time for us to rise up and be there for young girls who get pregnant and don't know what to do, for those who feel shamed. It's up to us. We need to stand up and say, you are not alone. We will stand beside you. You know, that's why we're on the earth at this time.
That's right.
You know,
Instead, they feel shame because we judge them, or we look down on them, or we don't talk about these issues. We have to talk about these issues in the church, because whether we like it or not, we're human. This fails every day, and we have to talk about it because that gives us the strength. And that's, I mean, what you say sets me free in a lot of ways. I mean, I really got to tell you that. Because I know that one day I will get to see, God already told me, you know, I'll get to see that child, and I believe it was a little girl. And that she'll love me. And that's a really hard thing as a woman. You know, it's a really hard thing. When I did get pregnant, I almost lost my son. So I was on my face for 8.5 months asking God to, please forgive me, don't take this one. Please forgive me, don't take this one. So I would just love it if you would even share a bit about that moment of forgiveness with your mom. How did she react to you saying to her, I forgive you?
It took her a long time to really maybe believe it or maybe even accept it. I think that for so long she believed lies about herself, that not only was she not worthy of forgiveness, but because she placed me for adoption, that she wasn't a good enough mother. And I was able to share with her how none of those things are true. Because she gave me my mom, because she gave me my family, she's the best mother for me. And so the forgiveness for me was instant, because I saw her pain and because I knew what God said about her. But it took a long time for her to believe me and to believe what God said about her. And it's been incredible the past year as she's been able to finally pray through the pain that she's experienced and accept the forgiveness of God. It truly, truly has set her free.
How many children are out there? You had a statistic, I think.
My friend Lynette told me that over 100,000 children are waiting to be adopted in our foster system right now. Over 100,000 just waiting to be adopted. And yes, some of those are risky. And as Barbara found out, you know, risk has reward, great reward. And we're so excited about them sharing this and showing us what God's grace. I love the story of you praying for a baby. It's just in God's perfect. And the weight, you know, we always talk about that weight God puts us through, and we're like, why are you making me wait? And you definitely saw why he was making you wait. I want to just thank you for opening yourself up and sharing.
Both of you.
Yeah.
I mean, both of you. You are just my heroes. Absolutely. I want to thank you for sharing your story.